endurance,
mental toughness,
perseverance,
reliability.
The play goes on.
Play goes on.
The play goes on.
My name is Vivian, and what I do for a living is I coach senior executives, including CEOs of companies, and I also do training in the business world. I found that the skills that competitive sports give people does in fact make a difference in the work world, because in many ways the work world is built on those very kinds of rules and interactions. When I coach executives in the business world, you can almost tell who has a sporting background, mainly by the way people talk. They talk about, bringing other people along so that we can all move the ball together. They use a lot of sporting metaphors, and this language lets you know pretty quickly whether or not somebody really did play sports.
I think one of the qualities that my employer really likes in me is the fact that I have grown up in sports. I worked in sports, played sports, coached sports, and I have knowledge about sports. And it comes into so much use not only in our working environment, in the broadcast booth, but of course with the knowledge of the game and understanding people and athletes. I'm Torrey Holt. I'm a broadcaster for Fox Sports Rocky Mountain in Denver, Colorado, now Root Sports, and also Channel 45 KSDC out of the Twin Cities. I played baseball, the first sport that I ever played, and later got into football as well. We weren't allowed to play football until I think we were in third grade, but baseball we were allowed to play. I think you can do that as soon as you're able to walk. You know, one of the things that I learned back in high school football from our coach Paul Miller was Lombardi time. If you don't know what Lombardi time is, well, you might want to read a book about one of the greatest coaches ever, Vince Lombardi. Lombardi time is 5 minutes before your appointment. That's when you have to show up. And our coach would make all of us show up 5 minutes early, and he called it Lombardi time. And if our appointment was at 8 o'clock, we were late if we weren't there at 7:55. So one of those things that I teach the kids now in coaching is Lombardi time. And when we joke at work, when we show up for our appointments, were you there by Lombardi time or not? So something my high school coach taught me 18 years ago now still rings true today when I work in my business with Fox Sports.
The skills that I see in others and that I think I bring with me from sports are things like time management, being able to really plan, not only for me, but with and for other people. It's also things like being ready for really tough things that are scary, so it gives you courage, which is very important. You also learn to deal with ambiguity, and that's one of the things that is really important in the business world, is being able to be flexible, being able to think and work on your feet when you don't know what's coming at you.
I think employers understand when they're hiring somebody that comes from an athletic background that they have values such as timeliness, such as being prepared, having good, strong work ethic, and understanding the concept of what goes into putting everybody, getting 28, 30, 50 people on one page for the obviously common goal. And I think that that's why when athletes are done, when they get done with college sports, when they get done with minor pro careers, there is no bad in it.
There are qualities that I think certain people in the workplace demonstrate that sometimes make me go, I wonder if that person played sports in their history and has kind of been part of a team. My name is Jackie Vossen, and I work for a Fortune 500 company. I actually work in promotion marketing. Throughout my life, I have played many sports. You know, my parents were very supportive in me trying anything I wanted to try and seeing what I really enjoyed. So I played everything from, t-ball, softball, volleyball, soccer, basketball, track and field, dance even for quite a few years. So, I truly did a little bit of everything and really found certain parts of all those sports that I enjoyed. But, the two that I really stuck with would be soccer and basketball. When I look back on, sports throughout my life, I think about all the supporters that I had within those sports, particularly my parents, because they were the ones who were there with me through the good times and the bad times. And, throughout that, there are many times where, practice, it was long hours. It was early mornings, late nights, sometimes 2-a-days, depending on which sport I was in. And, they had to remind me constantly about how much of a value this was going to add to me or add to my life at a later point, whether it's in, my marriage, my relationships, being a parent potentially someday, which now I am, and in the workplace. And, I think that what that training taught me was that, that mantra of, practice makes perfect. What I learned is good practice, makes perfect. And, you really got to put in the time and the effort to get the results that you want. You can't get those results without putting that time in. And I think that does translate very well into the business world.
My name is Ron Johnson, former professional football player for the Baltimore Ravens. In football, I have 10 teammates, so it's 11 total on the field, and the one thing we always had to do is trust each other. So from the quarterback to the receiver to the offensive lineman, everybody is a part of the team, and everybody has a specific role that they have to do. So everybody can't be the quarterback. Everybody wants to be the quarterback, but everybody can't be the main star. Each person has a role. The offensive line, for instance, one of the grittiest, dirtiest positions on the field, but they're the most important. They're the guys that keep the quarterback safe. And I've always equated that to business, that the boss or whoever's running the team has to be the quarterback. Everybody else has certain jobs they have to do. So myself being a manager, but also dealing with the entire company as far as writing a business plan, at times I would be the quarterback, but then there's other times where I'm protecting the quarterback. And I use that with my team, where if I am the quarterback, I give them each specific roles, and we have to be a team where I can trust that if I'm going to ask you to do this, you're not going to leave me exposed. And that's kind of a term they use in football, where if the offensive tackle leaves the quarterback exposed, he can get injured. And there's an old play I remember a long time ago that happened where that happened to a quarterback. He was exposed and he ended his career. So as a team in business, that we have to do that. We can't leave each other exposed. We have to work together, and there's specific roles that each person has to play. If everybody's working together, the job will be completed and we'll be successful.
One of the skills that I think is most important that is transferred from competitive sports is teamwork. Learning how to work with a variety of different people with a variety of different skills, and learning how to mesh those different skills so that you can all reach one goal.
I think one of the big things is being able to get along with people in business that you don't necessarily like or have a lot in common with, and that goes for sports as well. And growing up from a young age through high school into college and now as an adult playing intramural sports and coaching kids, you have to be okay with not liking everybody, but you have to understand that you're all in it for a common goal. In sports, you're in it to win a championship. In your business, you're in it for the good of what your professional career is. For me in broadcasting, I don't always like the producers or directors that I work with, and I don't always think that they have the best idea, and I think maybe my idea is the right one. But in the end, we're in it for a common goal, and we have to understand there's a give and take there, and that is something that I really learned in sports, was coming together as a team.
When I arrived at college, it was fabulous to be part of a sports team because you have instant community, and it was really the cornerstone of my college career in many ways. My name's Ann Thompson. I'm an associate manager at a major multinational company. Many of the things that are important in sports, specifically in rowing in my case, are the exact same things that are important in the business world. For example, with 8 people in the boat, if one is sick or doesn't show up, you all have to do something else. You have to go out running. And so your feeling of personal responsibility for the whole enterprise is enormous. And it's something that has absolutely translated into my sense of really needing to bring my best each and every day. The unique thing about the sport of rowing is that it truly is a team activity. There are 8 people in the shell, and one person could be having a bad day, and the whole crew really can't succeed. And it's something that has taught me enormous lessons as I apply them to my working world and even my personal life, in terms of really the importance of often not looking to succeed personally, but looking at how you can contribute to the larger team.
I was very much many times a captain in a lot of the sports I was in. But every once in a while, you have to take one for the team. So there was a particular game that I can think back to that I was thinking, why is my coach not having me start, and why am I sitting on the sideline? And I realized it was all about raising others up and giving them a chance to shine.
Every game is important. Every scuba diving trip is important. Every run I take is important, and it's all a very passionate thing that I've taken from sports. I'm Ellen Kokesh. I'm a senior in high school next year. I play soccer and I play basketball. Sports are a major part of my life, involving pretty much any physical activity, same with scuba diving, which I just finished yesterday. So pretty much anything physical, using my body, sports, everyday life. Teamwork is the #1 most important thing about a sport. It's awesome because you get closer with everyone, you make friends, you make foes, but more friends than anything. And not only relationships with the team members, but with your coaches, your assistant managers, all the people involved in sports have something to do with the teamwork, and that's awesome.
My parents were both professional level athletes, and my dad played professional baseball in the Negro Leagues. My mother was an Olympic finalist in track in Berlin for the Berlin Games. She didn't go because her mother wouldn't allow her because Hitler had come to power and they were really afraid. So part of what I learned growing up in this house was that you were able to do things that had subtleties but that were strong. You were able to plan things, you were able to strategize things. These were all things that you learned in sports that you took into life and into the business world. One of the things about being in a household like this was that you learned, and I grew up with 2 boys who were also very fine athletes, that you learned that even if you were a girl, you learned no matter what, you had to pull your weight. You had to step up just like everybody else, and you played to the very best of your ability. Now, that was important for me in the work world because that meant teamwork means you had to step up and play at your very best. You couldn't let anything, any stereotype about who you were or what people thought you could do hold you back, because you were not playing as an individual. You're playing as a team member and trying to get everybody to the win.
We didn't achieve as much success in sports in college as I had in high school, which was a struggle initially. But I think that perseverance and the teamwork throughout college was really something that centered me and made college as special as it was.
Failure.
We were ready for our very first race. And I have to say, nothing can prepare you for a race day. Absolutely nothing. There is anxiety and nerves that you just cannot prepare for no matter how much you practice. And in my very first race, in the 10th stroke, 5 seconds into the race, I fell off my seat. The seat came off the tracks. It was a disaster. Well, I decided I was going to try and put my seat back on the tracks and keep rowing. And guess what? It wasn't a disaster. It all worked out fine. And about a minute later, someone else in the boat had the exact same thing happen. And it's something that happens constantly at work, where you make mistakes and you pick yourself up and you try again. And sometimes, through that experience of making the mistake, you do it far better.
You have your ups and downs, and one of the big things is you have to be able to deal with both. You have to be able to handle the success and be okay with it and be good when you're on top, because you eventually will have your failures, and you have to be able to be able to stay composed and get through that.
You're not going to win every game. You're not going to make every big play. You're not going to even play as much as you thought you were going to play. But you have to have the mental toughness to understand that your time is going to come and that the success is a process. It's not going to happen overnight. It might not happen in a week. It might not happen in a month. Same thing happens in business. You come out with an initiative. You see a goal line. You see a business plan that you know is going to work, and it fails. It doesn't work at all. And you have to kind of go back to the drawing board. But I know sports has given me that mental toughness to understand that if I'm going to propose something or I'm going to go after a business deal and I don't get it, I can't just put my head down and get down on myself. I have to understand that, hey, there's going to be another deal to come, and I have to go to the next deal with the same intensity, the same want to, and the same need to succeed.
And I think also when you look at your team at work, there's a certain respect that people gain from seeing people as fallible, people who can make mistakes and still learn and grow. And those are the managers I see who I respect the most.
A lot of people always said I wasn't fast enough, I wasn't strong enough. And I always would use that as motivation to be better and do better and just always want to compete. Never really got faster, but what I figured out was I was able to use my body, use my size, and it never once, allowed me to feel down about myself. I knew whatever I had or whatever hurdles were my way, I would overcome them. And so that was the biggest driving force with me was if I failed at something, I wasn't fast enough or I wasn't strong enough, I would find a way to get around that with something different. So as far as being 6'3", I knew I could out-jump people. So my best friend was my quarterback, which I was lucky enough to have that. So we would always work on that, use my size. And I think in business it's the same kind of thing. Like sometimes they're going to say you're not the smartest, you don't know the most about this job because you haven't done it long enough. But what I do know is I know how to push people, make people do their best and control groups.
I deal with disappointment as best as I can. The usual, it would be just shrugging it off, and I just have developed a really tough skin. I take things to heart, but not super personally. It's usually thinking about it in the right way and thinking about what I can do next time to make it a lot better. And I've learned all that from the sports, like losing a big game or a game you should have won. And I learned it all from that, and I learned that the loss is just one thing. There's games to come, and you can win all the rest, but you just lose one.
I have failed. And in the business world, failing may have crushed me. But because of sports, I learned how to persevere and take that failure and turn it into something positive and truly learn from that failure.
When you're in the business world, things happen. They go badly. Things fail. People fail. And so how you deal with failure, whether you learn from it, what you learn from it, is really critical because that is really how you get better. And if you are always successful, if you're always, getting the home run, that only works up to a point because then you're just doing the same thing over and over and over. And when you fail, you learn to do things differently and you learn to think about yourself differently, not as the failure. You're not the failure, but what you're doing may be what's really causing the failure. So you learn to regroup, back up, rethink, and open your thinking. So failure really does serve a purpose. And that's one of the things that you learn in sports, is that the team doesn't quit because they had a failure. You learn to do things differently.
It's those people in those companies that find a way to say, you know what, we might not be as good as them at this, but we're going to beat them at this. And that's what I bring to work every day, is that I know there are certain things that we're not good at, but I know there's things we're great at. And if we can use the things we're great at to make the things that we're not as good at be better, then that's what we're going to do. We're always going to focus on the positive and not worry about the negative. The people that worry about the negative are the ones that do fail and don't know how to get up. Because failure is going to happen, but it's about how you bounce back. And that's one of the best lessons I ever learned from my favorite coach was that. He's like, I don't care if you drop the ball. I want to know what you're going to do in the next play. And I always keep that in the back of my mind. Like, if I do drop the ball, what am I going to do the next play? So it's the same in business. If I don't succeed at this task, the next task that comes up, I'm going to remember what happened. So whether I wasn't focused, whether I didn't do my research, I'm never going to make that same mistake twice. And I think that's always, been the thing that's kept me going, is that I never make that same mistake. If I fail at one thing one time, it's never going to happen again.
Being able to hold things together, even when you're feeling terribly vulnerable, you're feeling hurt, is really important in the business world, because you can't project or you can't sort of send the message to your competition that you're having a tough time. You can get injured, you can get taken off the field, but you learn that you have got to have the inner strength to get back in, get back up, and play the game.
My father always instilled in me the importance of determination and digging down deep to find a place inside you you never knew existed. He happened to have found that through cross-country running, and he was able to parlay that into his professional career. I found it in rowing, and I'm finding it every day as I work hard at my job, that sense of really being self-reliant and a willingness to go places you never knew you could go to achieve something far greater than even you've dreamt of.
The play goes on.
The play goes on.
The play goes on.
Oh,
Whatever you said
yeah.
about that.
And I guess, and if you're talking about taking my basketball skills into the office, I do that every day when I crumple a piece of paper and slam dunk it in the waste paper basket.